We're going to now have everyone that would like to talk about Scott Frank, memories, stories, just your words on Scott in general, and I think Jim's going to start us off here.
Hey, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, especially Sarah. And thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody who's here tonight to remember Scott Frank. I think this is a really good event. I'm glad I'm going first in front of Tiny because you are all still awake, which is super helpful. Where's Joel?
Oh yeah, I eat your burger. So.
Joel?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just say that you look like kind of like a Tiny who works out a little bit more and drinks a lot of juice.
Come on, man. Let's see what that
I love both of you guys.
He's literally eating a cheeseburger. No, I don't want it.
Okay, I think for me at least, one of my favorite things, Scott's contributions to the comedy world, for me at least, was his like private tasteful nudes. He just like set up his own channel of him laying out in like assless chaps as a very petite, kind of plump and very hairy man. That we could all appreciate his body such as it was. Really, the main reason that I'm here to talk about Scott is really to roast his goddamn motherfucking ass stupid dog.
Seymour!
Scott named his dog Seymour Butts. And I have not done the research, but I would assume that every cat mom in Brooklyn has named her cat Seymour Butts. Scott named his dog after a downcard Kentucky Derby ass horse name.
Oh, that was like
You're doing great.
Seymour Butts was neutered. However, Seymour Butts was such a misbehaved dog that he actually ejaculated in this bar. He did. Furthermore, Seymour Butts' ejaculation was far and away from the worst thing that has ever been cleaned up in this bar after Matt and Scott got done with it. Scott wrote a song about me and him. He would be behind the bar and I would be here. And it was called Jim Takes a Head Count. And it was about me and him trying to name and number, I guess, the randos that were in this bar, because this bar is entirely about our loyal regulars.
it's our family, baby.
And it's one of my favorite songs to listen to. I'm glad that he wrote it, and he is just an amazing person. Thank you.
It meant so much to all of us, and I'm not a fucking writer. I'm not a fucking comedian. I just want to thank everyone here tonight so much for coming out and showing their support. It means so much, I'm sure, to him and to me, and I just want to thank all of y'all. Thank you.
This is titled To Scott. Scott, I'll miss your cooking, even when it was terrible.
Always.
You couldn't cook a steak, and your pasta would give me heartburn.
Hey, I brought lasagna.
I'll miss being your roommate, even when you would walk through my room to use the shower in your underwear and dance seductively trying to elicit a laugh, which you got 50% of the time. I'll miss staying up with you late watching movies even though you'd fall asleep during pretty much all of them. I'll miss talking in poorly conceived Boston accents with you and creating characters. My two favorites being Al Pacino as a pizza shop owner and the lonely old man at Denny's. Would anybody like to see these in person? This is Al Pacino owning a pizza shop, talking to his delivery drivers. What are you doing, guy? You're sitting here. You could be out making money. Think of all the money. I don't feel like pulling up a chair, but this is the only lonely old man sitting at Denny's. Myrtle? Myrtle? Oh, that's right. She's gone. It's not a happy one. Scott was the type of person who, when going to work, would leave the TV on for his dog Seymour. Countless times I would walk by his door and see Lady and the Tramp playing. Seymour never really seemed to give a shit, but I guess it's the thought that counts.
Yeah. Good for Scott.
Scott, I'll miss talking shit to you about the New England Patriots and how when you were grumpy, you kind of looked like a fuzzy Bill Belichick. You were a great DM. For those who don't know what a DM is, it's Dungeons and Dragons is a dungeon master. You make the game.
Dick master.
And or a dick master, that works too. I want to thank you for making my first time playing an amazing experience and for letting me have a cool character. The sheer fact that you're able to make our game go on for more than a year speaks volumes about your creativity. I'll miss you walking into my room shortly after you'd hear me wake up and serenade me with guitar playing and a song. My favorite tune being, I wish I was Chris's girl. Scott encouraged me to try stand-up comedy here at Cuddy's, and my first time performing, I don't remember what I said. Sure, it probably wasn't very good, but he enthusiastically praised me for my afro afterwards, and he really knew how to make others feel good. That's all he ever wanted to do, is to make you feel good. I'm sorry for not doing the dishes very often, and for leaving leftover pizza in the fridge for weeks at a time. Whenever I was down on myself or in a weird mental funk, you'd say something along the lines of, "You're a great guy, I love you, man," and honestly I wish I had said the same to you more often. Where did I put my cup? Having said that, to Scott Frank, a great fucking guy.
Couple things. One, Scott and I met in a water balloon fight.
Yes.
With our neighbors. David, I don't know if you're still here, but you were part of that. For one trivia, he hid an Easter egg in my purse to make sure I would never find it and not win. He carried me on his shoulders as an adult.
That's amazing.
So, I know everybody's talking about taking shots, so in the words of Scott, take a shot, but don't forget to drink some water.
Hey, we did have a blasty blast tonight.
Yeah!
And we had a blasty blast for Scott Frank. Because if anybody would have a blasty blast here, it fucking would have been him. And speaking of blasty blasts, I will definitely tell you one of my favorite stories of our dear Scott Frank. One late evening, post-cutties, as per usual, we decided to have a nice little...
We're talking too much, Joey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put a little more gusto in my voice for the assholes to hear on the back.
Yeah!
So we went to Scott Frank's house one night, and it was the classic thing: have a couple beers, have a few laughs, smoke a couple joints, casual. So we decided that me and Scott should have a wrestling match, which, if you have ever seen me in a physical altercation, you know that's a terrible idea. So Scott proceeds to put me in a headlock, and I'm floundering around like an idiot as per usual. And he judo flips me over my hip and decides to give me something that I will never ever forget. Because Scott always gave a piece of himself to somebody, always, whether it was his love or a joke, a compliment, or just, a nice awkward smile from across the bar. He left me with a nice plate, a couple pins, and a screw in my wrist here. I'll have this for the rest of my natural-born life, and I will always remember Scott Frank, not for that altercation, but the next morning in the hospital, because he had to call my mother and tell her what happened. My mother proceeded to tell Scott Frank, "You will be there to pick him up, and you will check him out of the hospital." Turns out that was a terrible idea, because we don't know how to check each other out of the hospital. So he helped me put my clothes on, told every female nurse as we walked out of the door that I had a great dick, as I'm embarrassed, and if you've ever seen a brown man blush, that would be the day. And every day when I talked to my mother about Scott Frank, she was like, you still got all those hospital bills you never paid for. Probably never will. So me and Scott Frank will always have that together. So I love you, Scott. Thank you for being there for all of us, always. Thank you.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm tiny. And I got some shit to say. Sorry, I just turned into Ice Cube for a second. My bad. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. So many great memories with Scott Frank. It's really hard to choose one to talk about, but since we watched the roast today, I'm going to tell a backstory of how he convinced me to even do it. Like, I had never done anything like that before. And you all just saw it, and I'm glad you laughed. And I laughed too. Because that shit was fucking funny.
You go on this guy.
So, we were here, of course, and he was telling me, he was like, we're going to have a roast of me in a few months. You should do it. And I said, no, man. I've never done anything like that. Like, I can't do that. And he's like, come on, man, you're funny. You should do it. And I say, no, I'll be too nervous. It'll be fine. Plenty of people are going to do it. Like, you don't need me. It's cool. And he says, come on, man, you'll be great. Just do it for me. And I said, you know what I'll do? I'll buy you a shot to shut the fuck up about it. And so I buy him the shot, and we do the shot, and, we cheers, of course, like, cheers, man. Shut the fuck up about it. And he says, all right, thanks for the shot. But seriously, man, you really should do it. And I'm like, God damn it, Scott. Like, come on, man. And so, like, I ended up doing it. And it was nerve-wracking, but also incredibly fulfilling. Making people laugh comes with immense joy. And that's what Scott was best at, was making people laugh and bring them joy. He once told me that that night was actually, like, the best time of his life. And he continually told me how amazing I did that night, and I was like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, I know, it's fine, I did it, cool. Just stop. But he was so happy in that moment and that night made him so happy, and it's awesome that we all got to watch that together as a family, because we are a family. And sometimes, honestly, I just watch it like when I'm kind of feeling down. I'm not a vain person. I don't listen to my podcasts. I don't post on Facebook a lot.
Oh, yeah,
I fucking don't.
yeah, you do.
Like
podcast host.
Like
The sports, the show. Come on.
the sports, the show. Yeah. That doesn't mean the sports, the show. I listen to it. But
How about DC?
I honestly,
sports.
yeah, DC.
You wear the
is
same
best.
shirt?
But I honestly try not to even look in the mirror that much.
I don't blame
I'm
you.
really honest, and you guys can probably tell. So, yeah, like, he had such a good night that night, and that's why we played it today. And the reason I watch it sometimes is because it feels good to make people laugh. And he enjoyed making people laugh so much. And he was so good at it. And you could tell on his face, like, every day, like, that's what made him the happiest. You know, like, we all saw it. Scott was infinitely hilarious, and without a doubt, the world will never have as much laughter in it that now he's gone. So, in his honor, and in an effort to make up for less laughter in the world, I'm going to ask you guys to do two things.
Chapter 7.
They're easy. Chapter 27.
27.
So I'm going to ask you guys to do two things. And the first thing is really easy. We're doing it right now, actually. And we are all very good at it. And that is, every day, fuck it, every hour, make someone laugh. And laugh yourself. Because that is so important for just everyone and everything. So, laughter is...
He said laugh, not clap. Come on.
Yeah, I said laugh, not clap. That's true. Thank you, Elliot.
You're step one. Step one for you, buddy.
Yeah, we're doing it right now. And laughter is this beautiful, uncontrollable emotion. No matter how bad of a day you're having or how depressed you might be, when you laugh, at least in that fleeting moment, you experience pure joy and true happiness. And that's what Scott gave us so often. So that's one of the many reasons he was a beautiful guy. Woo! And the second thing I want you guys to do is also pretty easy, but more important maybe, and that is to never take friendships and this family that we built together for granted. We are a family, a goofy, gifted, gorgeous family.
We'll take two of those three adjectives.
Gorgeous.
And I'm the dad.
Yeah!
You hear me? You understand me?
Daddy!
You understand me? I'm the fucking dad. All right? And I'll prove it right now.
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna prove it. So, picture this. Jeffrey Van Antwerp Hill. I will turn this motherfucker around so fast that it's gonna hurt your tummy. And don't come at me like, oh, my tum-tum's gonna hurt. So, like, if your tum-tum hurts, good. But if it doesn't, I will not turn this motherfucker around. And can it, Jeff?
Yeah!
So, what we have here at Cuddy's is special. Not everyone is lucky enough to be part of something like what we have built. So I urge everyone here to never deny an opportunity to see a friend, because you might not get that opportunity again.
Fucking right.
The thing that makes life beautiful is that we get to do it together. And the only way to deal with death is also together. And we are all here together to celebrate the life of a talented musician, a hilarious comedian, and a great performer in public and in private. But the main reason we are here is because he was even better at being a friend. So, we're gonna cheers to Scott. Everyone fucking cheers right now. Scott! And we're gonna cheers to us as well for keeping this family together forever. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks, Johnny.
I've known Scott for a little while, met him here, and I've loved him through the years, and we became, oh, really, he's been kind of my, like, comedy, like, mentor, like, tries to drag me in at any time, and we've became kind of a duo in the sketch comedy world. And there's a character that we had together that he loved, and it was like this weird gay German servant that I was. So I know we were planning on doing it before he was like going to go off to Chicago and things, so we weren't able to do that. But I thought it'd only be fitting to get in character and read a eulogy in his honor.
What? Oh my God!
Oh, jeez.
Oh yeah!
Oh, no.
I love it. There we go. I love it. Those shutter shades.
Today, there is a pain in my heart, worse than any amount of cocaine that I've ever done. As you all know, I have lost my little snuggle bear. And as I look around the room, I see tiny little man-sized craters in all of you. For you too have lost your snuggle bear. He has impacted us all. Whether it was through his passion for playing awful music or simply whispering a poop joke in your ear. His sole purpose in life was to bring joy and laughter to all the boys and all the girls. When I received this unfortunate news, I was more devastated and sickened since the time my card got declined at the Old Navy outlet mall. I will miss these random moments with you when I sit at the bar minding my own business, only to turn around and see your beady puppy dog eyes looking up at me, insisting that I buy you another shot. I know that I'm only being selfish, for you are in a better place now. You are at peace in hell with all of our idols. I know that when I'm sad, I can look down at you. I can see him dancing now with Stephen Hawkins. And even playing checkers with Genghis Khan. Leave the light on for me, my little snuggle bear. I'll be there soon. Auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen.
I write this down. I haven't done this in a long time because I'm really bad at it. But Scott and I started Comedy Night back in 2012 here at Cuddy's as this another place for us to. We performed together other places before, but we wanted our own place to do our own thing. And Scott, for at least the first year we did it here, he was like a headliner. He would host and he would close, and he made it a point to make every comedian feel at home here, and not just every comedian, every person that came to Cuddy's, Scott made you feel at home, and that's not what I intended to say at all. It's not on the sheet.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you. Between D&D, improv, and writing, Scott and I spent a lot of imaginary time playing together and pretending. It sounds way gayer when I say it now. But I say that mostly to say we did a lot of imagining, we did a lot of playing together, because Scott refused to grow up, and I think that's why he was so short. Thank you. Scott was always telling me to shut up. I talk a lot, and he was always telling me to shut up. So to honor his memory, I'm going to keep this very short tonight. I only wrote like 10 things that I could say aloud without crying anyway. And to be honest, I read this to myself a couple times earlier today and cried then, so I apologize if I didn't hear it. It's a very short sheet. It'd be a short cry.
For a short man.
For a short man. Scott was the kind of guy that would give you the shirt off his back. That's mostly because he was always looking for a way to take off his shirt. Say what you want, but it takes a kind of special kind of sweaty, hairy, grunge wannabe emo sad boy to wear a flannel all summer long in Charleston. Scott Frank used to shave his chest hair in the shape of a heart for special occasions, which is way more romantic than it sounds. I've seen Scott Frank in a diaper more times than I've seen him wear shorts. You know what? I've also never seen Scott Frank open his eyes all the way. I've also seen Scott Frank deck a guy twice his height because he called him Frank Scott repeatedly after being asked to stop. Never call Scott Frank Frank Scott.
It really happened.
And the ladies love Scott Frank, right? Ladies love Scott Frank. Scott Frank proved that with a little confidence, an apartment a block away from a bar, anybody could get laid.
Yeah!
Fucking love that dude. Scott had a strong animal magnetism, like an orangutan that ate too many lead paint chips. I wish you could hear this shit. Scott once got the cops called to my apartment for yelling moist butthole too loud and too often. Because the lady down the street who just had a baby had her husband come over to our house and threatened to beat us up. And I quote, "Moist butthole? Moist butthole? Seriously? Moist butthole?"
That really happened?
That really happened. That's a real legitimate story. There's a video of it. We did a video, me and Justin, who was in the video, we did a video on my front porch. With the whole video, the moist butthole is in the video. The whole video is them exactly this close to each other. yelling things that they like about each other back and forth. It's on YouTube, probably on the same channel as that thing you just saw. Feel free to look it up, it's disgusting.
Just like what you just saw.
Yeah, just like that.
I just had to like have you read
Or was that? Another thing about Scott Frank, he's the only adult I've ever seen order a cheeseburger at a Mexican restaurant. He also almost never finished a whole meal in one sitting. Almost never. And I don't know much about sports, but I do know the worst thing about Scott Frank is that he was a Patriots fan.
Yeah!
I wrote that for Tiny. That was a...
Appreciate it. DC Defenders.
And when Scott asked if you wanted a shot, what he really meant is, do you want to buy him a shot? So in that spirit, I'm going to conclude with, does anybody want a shot?
I don't really have too much funny to say. I didn't have anything planned, but as I sat here and I rewatched that video and listened to all the stories, I realized that many of my brightest and favorite... that's okay, they're just assholes. You know, assholes do as assholes do, I guess. Is as they do, shit, poo, what? Okay.
What do I do?
Yeah, shit, poo, yeah. I'm an adult, ladies and gentlemen. I just got up here and say shit, poo. Anyway, before I go too far, I just want to say that some of my favorite moments in my 20s were spent here. And many of them are my favorite moments because of that asshole that just went and died on us. So I want to do this in honor of Scott Frank. And of all my favorite moments, my favorite times, is when Cuddies became cuties because all the dudes... All the dudes took their shirts off, so I'm going to do this without a shirt on. If anybody else wants to take their shirt off, they're welcome to. I'm just, yeah, Chris. Yeah! Where's Brian? Brian. No other takers. All right, I love you, Tom. All right, I'm gonna.
All right!
All right. Where's the butter, right? All right. If anybody has a drink, I'm going to raise this drink to the loving memory of Scott Frank, our dear friend.
Yeah! To Scott.
To Scott.
Scott.
I feel awkward.
I feel kind of horny.
I am not a comedian. In no way am I a comedian.
You're a dentist.
But
You're a dentist.
in the spirit of Scott Frank being a fantastic dancer, I have to share a story.
Woo!
So it was 2015. Katie's birthday on Folly Beach.
Oh, God.
We had been drinking for 2 days straight. We'll put it this way. And honestly, like, none of us are in a straight mind. We'll put it about like 12 o'clock that Saturday night. We all decide to walk from her beach house. We'll call it a beach house. We walk down to the Sand Dollar, which none of us are members of, but we make our way in.
We bought memberships.
I'm gonna say thanks to Will. We probably got ourselves in there. He probably bought our memberships. But this guy in the sand dollar, he wasn't that fond of us. This guy was a male stripper. Scott Frank decided that he was going to challenge him to a dance. Like, he really was like, we're going to challenge this guy to a dance-off. And none of us were like, dude, this guy's a male stripper. Like, we don't have anything to do with that guy. Scott Frank, he made that guy so uncomfortable. Scott Frank literally danced up on this guy for about 5-6 minutes, just fucking grinding on him. A male stripper. He made a male stripper so fucking uncomfortable that male stripper walked out of the place. I love that dude so much. Like, the fact that you could go up there and dance on a male stripper and make that male stripper so uncomfortable that he no longer wanted to be a part of that, and then essentially let all of us in there because that guy was so uncomfortable. He was like, I guess all you guys can be a part of this club now? I love Scott Frank. He's a great guy.
Tell him about the walk home.
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember that walk home, Will. We got to hang out in that club long enough that I don't get to remember that walk home because of Scott Frank. But honestly...
The bushes?
You
tell the story.
Will, stop it. Stop it. Anyway, that is my story of Scott Frank. That is my favorite story of Scott Frank. I've had a lot of them, but that's the one I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
You're welcome, man.
Let me start off by saying that, holy shit, Chris is ripped. By far the sexiest man in this bar right now. You're getting all the attention, Chris.
Tiny across the room.
Cuties. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah.
What was that?
Scott Frank is one of those guys that if you had never seen Scott Frank, the first time you saw Scott Frank, you knew you wanted to be that person. You want to be friends with that person. You just see this drunk maniac screaming, and you're like, that guy looks like a lot of fun. The first time I saw him was at Big Gun, and he was doing stand-up, and he was doing a bit where Brian DeMage was his hired heckler. And it was one of the funniest things I had ever seen. And I was like, I want to be that guy's friend. And then I went up and I introduced myself. And then to quote Brian, he was like, hey, you want to get a shot? But what Scott meant was that I was buying him a shot. And all the shots for the rest of the night. And that's how it was for our entire friendship. And Brian asked me if I wanted to come host trivia at Cuddy's with Scott. And I didn't know what I was getting into with that. And as soon as I said yes, he said, you fucked up. Because mostly what I remember about trivia at Cuddy's with Scott is Scott screaming to quote Tiny, somebody give me a fucking shot! And we would get so goddamn drunk because Scott would be like, all right, if anybody wants an extra 2 points, all you gotta do is buy us a round of shots. So people would do that 15 times a night. And it would come time for the final question, I'd be like, dude, I don't think I can do this math right now. I'll never forget the time that we're hosting trivia, and a drunk couple came in here, and they kept shouting out the answers, and then on the mic, Scott kept dissing the guy, and then the guy tackled Scott, and he bit Scott on the cheek. And then Tiny started, we all kicked this guy out, and then every single person in the bar got a stick in on this guy as we kicked him out. And I just want to thank you, Cuddies, for that, because that's like, this is one of the best families I've ever been a part of. You've always made me feel so welcome here. We even did my own roast of me here. which is crazy to me. And Scott came dressed as Ronnie Raglan, my brother, and made fun of my fluctuating weight problem the entire time. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I tried to look up my notes from that roast. I couldn't find them. I just remember one specifically was, every time Scott Frank comes on a girl, they get bed bugs.
Oh, jeez.
That's pretty good. Scott could be a vindictive little bastard too. I'll never forget, me and him got really drunk, and we passed out right up the street at Lily Slade's house. And we woke up in the morning, we're like, fuck, dude, we gotta go to work, we're gonna be late. And Lily Slade made us toast before we went to work. And then before we got to work, Scott Frank ran in front of me, and then he walks in, and as soon as we get in, Scott Frank just goes, Hagen fucked Lily. And I went, God damn it, no I didn't. Hagen fucked Lily. And then 10 minutes into work, we realized that Lily made us toast with butter, weed butter. And so for the next 8 hours, me and Scott were just like, oh no. How are we gonna do this? Scott Frank took off his shirt and danced at Rec Room and plopped himself on the ground so hard that people like literally thought he had AIDS the next day. He just had purple blotches all over his skin from just flopping on the ground. People always said that me and Scott looked alike, and I don't get that. They always said we look like brothers. He's the way better dancer, by far. Can we just make some noise for how good of a dancer Scott Frank was? It doesn't take any effort at all. It just takes fucking machismo.
Yeah.
And Scott Frank had all the machismo in the world. He put 110% into anything. I talked to a paper and said, with Scott Frank, you never just hung out with Scott Frank. It was never just chilling. He was always doing a bit or doing a character, and that's part of why you wanted to be friends with him. And he was also very vulnerable. He would also open himself up to you, and you could open yourself up to him too. And that's not a thing that a lot of people share out in the open, and it takes a strong person to do that. And I just want to thank all of you guys. Like a week before Scott passed, he sent me a video of him in a Boston accent ranting at a glass.
Yes!
I'm gonna play this for you guys.
Yes!
Hopefully there's no slurs or anything in this, but that's Scott's own fault.
Fuck it. Woo!
Look at these fucking glass here. You think you can fit a whole goddamn beer here? No. No, of course not. You can't fit no goddamn beers in there. Fucking White Claw, what do you want? Fucking pussy? We're mango drinking, motherfucker. You can't even fit a whole goddamn beer. You're supposed to say this in a pint glass? That ain't no goddamn pint glass.
Scott Frank sent me that with no context. And that's exactly what it's like to be friends with Scott Frank. Everybody make some noise for Scott Frank! And make some noise for yourselves, y'all. Everybody hug each other. Everybody take a bunch of shots. Thank you so much, guys. I love every single one of you.
I first came to Cuddy's in 2013, and Scott Frank was the second person that I met here. It was Matt, which, I mean, you meet Matt. If you stick around after that for Cuddy's, you get to meet the wonderful Scott Frank. So, you know, there used to be a chalkboard up by the fan back there, and the first time I ever talked to Scott, there was a number up there. It said 0 days since Scott Frank's last molestation. And this was during fantasy football season, so I told Matt, well, who's Scott Frank? He was like, that's Scott Frank, and pointed down the bar to him. And I was like, well, Scott Frank's going to get molested in 3 days from now when I play him in fantasy football. So that was my first ever interaction with Scott. Scott's always been a very loving, wonderful, caring guy. Even if you had ups and downs with him, he'd always, you know, have a lot of love for you, and that's something you'll never forget. I'm very thankful to meet him for meeting him in general. He helped me get into the comedy scene DJing, and he really took a chance on me because I had never really DJed before. Scott let me DJ, so he always believed in you, and he would always take a chance on his friends, even if, you know, he'd only known you for a month, a day, however long, he would always give you a shot. So I'm going to miss Scott greatly, and I'm really sad to see him go.
I played music with Scott since about 2015 in Fiasco, and the Disgusting Follies, of course. We can't forget that visionary music experience that blessed the world for about a year.
Call your mom!
Definitely call your fucking mom, dude. I don't really have a particular story to share right now. I think the music we're about to share is kind of that story, and my brain is honestly fucking fried from working on this stuff all day, but it has helped to kind of put together the music side of things after finding out about Scott passing. That was a really important part of his life, and so it's been really great to, you know, put everything together to celebrate that. For those that don't know, next Thursday, March 5th at Royal American, we're going to have kind of a celebration show for Scott.
Yeah.
How it's panning out right now, we're going to have Drunk Couples play, which is a band I play in with my buddy CJ, and we were always kind of like a brother band of Fiasco. Scott's old band from the Savannah area called Big Awesome is going to play. They're really great, and I don't think they've played in a long time. It'll be really special to have them up here for that. And then the Royal Tinfoil is going to play, who Scott actually maybe played in, maybe was the hype man for, kind of. The washboard?
What's the washboard?
He went on tour for a whole 6 weeks.
Fuck yeah, dude. Most importantly, everyone in Royal Tinfoil are some of Scott's best friends in the world, so it wouldn't be right if they weren't there. So they're going to play, and then anyone that knows anything about Fiasco knows that Scott is that fucking band. Like, it doesn't exist without him, but what we're going to try our best to do is play a couple of the Fiasco songs. The three current members, Bundy, Nate McKinley, myself, and then some of the past members as well are all going to be there. And actually the original founding member of Fiasco with Scott, Alan Andrews, is going to sing a few of the songs. Anyone that knows Alan knows that he's the only one that could do those songs justice. So he's going to come down from Florence. It'll be really special to have him there. But getting onto this album that we finished up today, it's this like beautiful, tragic thing that we have a finished product, a complete thought of Scott's that was finished a week ago, a week before he passed at least. We started recording it in early February. The plan was just kind of put it out sometime in the spring, with late March, April, May, something like that, whenever worked well for everyone. But Scott was really excited about these songs. You could really feel it towards the end when we were kind of doing the last sessions, putting it all together. He was just so giddy and just wanted to get it out there immediately for everyone to hear. And it's just really sad that he's not going to be here for the first time that we listened to it all the way through with everyone. But I really think it's some of Scott's best songwriting, just one of his best contributions to life and to the world. We're going to call it I'll Be With You, which is a lyric from one of the first songs Fiasco wrote called Breath Pattern, which was one of his favorite songs. We felt like that fit the sentiment okay. We're going to put it out next week, but we can premiere it now, kind of, just play it for everyone. I don't know if I have much more to say about it, but we hope you enjoy it. Stick around. It's only like 10 or 11 minutes long, so I think Sarah's going to play it over the system, and we really hope you guys enjoy it.